Okay, so I spent a little time coding here and doing some things that I think would be useful for you guys and fun in order to kind of get a good start on jQuery and some of the cool effects you can get with it. Some of the DOM manipulation stuff is pretty basic. Remove things, add things, change the text on things. It's not that different than what we've been doing in JavaScript, other than easier. It's a much easier way to do DOM manipulation. And when we get into some even more complicated things like server communication with AJAX calls, it's going to make that a whole heck of a lot easier too. But for the time being, I think what would be really cool is to show you some of the UI stuff that it helps you do really easily. So you can see what I've done here is I have actually, what should I say? Should I talk about this first? I'll talk about that at the end. I want you first to look at this container here. So I have some styles here, and the container is just something that's 500 by 200 with a border on it. And actually, I'll show you what I have. It just looks like some rectangles, some squares. So this is my app. I just have some colored squares, and each one of them demonstrates a different thing that jQuery lets you do. So this first one is a container with these four things, and the classes are click me, hide me, fade me, drag me. So that's these four guys up here, green, purple, black, and blue. So if we look at those styles in CSS, there's nothing too special about them except for this. So position relative in CSS means that it's kind of absolute positioning with relative to its parent. So you don't want to mark something's position as absolute unless you want to give it hard-coded XY coordinates for the whole screen. I use relative a lot because you want it to adjust based on its parent. So other than that, I give these things a z-index of 1 because the squares are going to be moving around and stuff, and you want to be able to determine what's on top of what. I'm sure you can figure that out if you know anything about geometry. So these really are just some basic styles to get them to look the way they look. So where it gets interesting and fun is when we get into the JavaScript. So I want you to notice that the very first thing I did in my script file is I declared an empty object called home. Now the purpose of this home object, since we're on the home page, is to establish a scope. So everything that happens is going to happen within the scope of home. I'm not going to write any functions that are not functions of the home object. I'm not going to create any variables that are not variables on the home object. So I'm only creating one object, and I'm writing a bunch of functions. I'm attaching a bunch of functions to that object, and I'm only working with this home object. The purpose of scoping things like this is so you don't start stepping over other people's toes. Like, if I here's an event called wire click event. Now if I just named that wire click event, what if somebody else wrote a function with the same name? This way, it's kind of like a namespace, and then all of my functions belong to home. So nobody can, unless somebody else has, another object called home, nobody's gonna be causing conflicts with my code. So this is really important. This is kind of, it's not jQuery, but this kind of I guess it's a convention. This kind of convention of scoping things properly goes kind of right along with best practices in jQuery. So I want you to just notice that off the bat. So I have home. I give it two properties. The title I leave blank, and I'll show you. I'll explain that later. And the animation status left. I'll explain that later. So let's start off with. Let's see, which triangle do I want to talk about? Let's start off with the black one. So the black one is. Let's go to the CSS here. The black one is the fade me. So our old friend here, document ready. So all these functions, notice I have them collapsed because I don't want you looking at them because I want you to focus on one at a time. But when the document's ready, all I'm doing is I'm saying, hey, call all of these methods that I just defined. So I defined all these methods up here, and as soon as the document is ready, I'm going to call them. So I'm basically going to wire up all these events. And you could, you don't have to write methods for these. I could have just spewed all that code right in the middle of the document ready function, but then it would be impossible to read. So I want you to try to emulate, a nice organized approach here where everything is kind of, it reads like English. So, when the document's ready, wire up the click event, wire up the drag event, and, if you want to know more details about those particular methods or functions, you can go dive into them like we want to do now. So we were talking about the fade event. So if I'm going to open that one up, wire fade event. So this is a very simple function. It says find something in the DOM that has the class fade me. So here it's going to grab the third div, and that is that guy right there, the black one. Okay, so it grabbed him, turned him into a jQuery object, and now it says attach this function to the click event. Well, what does the function do? It says treat this object as a jQuery object and call fade out, which is a built-in method in jQuery, and it takes one parameter, which is at least in this case there's more than one parameter, but I'm only using the first one, and that's the number of milliseconds that I want it to happen. So all this, all I have to do is this, and as soon as I click on it, literally it's going to fade out in 0.8 seconds. So if I come here, click on it, it fades out, and notice that the blue box shifted over because I have these laid out as inline block, so they're all one after the other, and when one gets removed from the DOM, all the other ones shift over. So that's perfect. That's exactly what I wanted. So that's pretty cool. And similarly, if I look at the purple one, the one right to the left of it, that one's called hide me. And that's the purple one, hide me. So if I look at that event, wire hide event, this is again very easy. It says find the guy that has the class hide me, and if you click on it, invoke a method that calls, again, this is a jQuery method that's just built into jQuery that knows how to completely hide the thing in the DOM. So if I click on purple, it goes away and the blue moves over. So again, I can do that once more. I can remove purple, fade out black, and everything shifts over. So that's cool, sort of. How about, which one next? I think blue. I think you're going to like that. So the blue is drag me. You can see here, the blue one is drag me. That's on the far right. So take a look at this. This is the smallest function in this whole file, drag event. So you just say find the element that has the class drag me, and all you do is you call the function draggable, and the amount of magic that works is pretty astounding. So check it out. All I have to do is click this blue box and I can pretty much pull it anywhere on the screen, which is kind of crazy. It kind of blows my mind. Yeah, I mean, all the logic is really just embedded in the jQuery library. So you notice it's in back of everything. Ugh, that's no good. Well, what if I want it to be in front of everything? I could just come over here to my drag me, and I can change the z index to 2. That'll probably do it, I think. Yep. So now it's in front of everything. So z index controls what's on top of what. So that's pretty cool. And it'll still move over, I think. If I get rid of that, yep, get rid of that. It starts shifting over. So that's cool. So let's move on to my personal favorite. Well, it's not really my personal favorite, but it's fun. The click me is the first one, the orange box. So if you look at wire click event, so this one's kind of interesting. So this says find the guy and attach this function whenever you click on it. So what happens is grabs it, throws it in a variable, and I set some text on it just to prove that, I think I did this just to kind of demonstrate once again that you can take any object in JavaScript, even if it's a jQuery object, and just throw this dynamic property on it. So I said, hey, now you have an alert text. So literally this div right here now has a property called alert text on it, and I'm going to alert it. Oh, I'm sorry, that's the green one. Oh yeah, I remember what I did now. So the green one isn't my favorite, it's boring. The orange one is my favorite. So the green one just says div became jQuery object. So that's really boring. That's why I put it up here. The top row is supposed to be all the boring stuff. So the click event, the disappearing event, the fading event, and the dragging event. So now we move on to the fun one, the orange one. So that's animate me. Okay, so this is one of my favorite things to do in jQuery. Actually, I know how to do some pretty amazing animations combining JavaScript and CSS, but we're going to start slow here. So the animate event that I have right here, it's pretty basic. So what I've done is I've said find the guy, and then now I'm starting to use this variable that I declared up here, this animation status that I initialized to left. So it's going to say if the animation status is left, which it is because that's what I initialized it to, it's going to grab the div and it's going to call .animate. So it kind of takes this JSON object. We're going to learn about JSON later. It's basically just some name value pairs, comma delimited within a begin and an end. So it kind of looks like this if you spread it out. So this right here is basically a JSON object, or in JavaScript it's just the definition of a generic object with 3 properties, left, height, and width. So that's the first parameter of the animate, is like, what do you want to animate? Put all the properties that you want to animate in here, the name being the dimension and the value being the modification to that dimension. And then the second parameter in the function animate is just, again, the duration. So, when I combine that all, it says, I want you to take the left property and turn that into 310, and I want you to add 80 pixels to the height and 80 pixels to the width over the duration of 800 milliseconds. And then, when you're done, I'm going to change the value of this animation status variable to right. The reason that I do this at the end is because the second time I click on it, and I come in here, I want this to be negative, I want this to be false, I want it to fall through to here, and I'm going to do the exact reverse animation and send it back to where it was, and then I'm going to set the status back to left. So I can kind of bounce it back and forth. And you're going to get kind of this effect where I click on it, and it scales it and translates it. So in computer graphics, we call moving something a translation and changing the size of something a scale. So I'm kind of sending it back and forth, changing the location and the size. So that's pretty cool. I like it anyway. And then finally, what did I do on the bottom guy? The bottom guy is chain me. Oh, right. So you can also chain events together, so you can do more than one. So in this case, I've grabbed the div. So I grab the div and I say, now I'm using the CSS property. So the CSS property is so useful. You use this all the time because there's a lot you can do with CSS. So you grab something and you change the CSS property on it. The first parameter is the CSS property that you want to change, and the second parameter is the value. So I said, hey, first off, change its background color to red. And then this is chaining. So see, I have this method, and then I call this method, and then I call this method. So I'm chaining 3 methods together. So I'm saying first change its color to red, then slide up, and when you're done with that, slide down. So actually I might as well just go ahead and say it now. So this is a combination of showing you how to chain methods together and also doing a callback. So if I kind of erase this for one second, almost all of these functions that take duration, you have an optional callback function that you can pass as the next parameter. What that is the function that's going to be invoked when the event is complete. So at the end of the 800 milliseconds, it's going to call whatever function I put here. So it's a little hard to read when you write it this way, but showing it like this, hopefully you can kind of see it. It says call the CSS property, change it, slide up. When that's done, it's going to slide down, and then this function here is going to get called when the slide down is over. So I put that function in there. This is the callback function, and essentially it's going to change the background color back to yellow as soon as the slide down is complete. So that's what all of this does. So I'm just doing a combination of a chain and a callback function. So you can kind of watch it. It's going to turn red, it's going to slide up, it's going to slide down, and then change back to yellow. So not a whole lot of code, but you can really write a teeny tiny bit of code in jQuery to get a lot of behavior out of it. So I think that's pretty cool. Did I cover everything? The click event, the drag event, the hide event, the fade event, the animate event, the chain event. Oh, the hover event, I forgot about that. So you'll recall that we did in the previous labs do some hovering. We had like list items, and we had to say do a mouse over event and a mouse out event and change the color, and it was kind of annoying the way we had to do that. So much easier in jQuery. So if we look at this hover event, so look what I do here. I say find my header, and here it is right here. So where'd it go? Right there. So the guy that says my first jQuery application, so it's going to grab that out of the DOM. Oops. And it's going to say, okay, call hover. And hover takes two functions as parameters. So that's function 1. There's a comma to separate the two parameters. That's function 2. And that's the end of the, you can see it lighting up there. That's the end of the hover. So hover really just takes two parameters. Function 1, comma, function 2. Function 1 is what's going to happen when you mouse over. Function 2 is what's going to happen when you mouse out. So this is really easy. I can say change the color to red, change the color to black using the CSS jQuery method. So this is super simple. It's going to take that, attach the hover event listener to it. And what we get is I hover over it, turns red, and I come back out and it turns back to black. So that's really nice, really easy, much easier than it was before. So one last thing, and that is what I said that I was going to save till the end, and that is this. So I decided to put this in here just because I actually ran into kind of a problem with it myself, and I thought, oh, this is going to confuse people. Thought to myself, what if somebody gets confused about what's on the back end and how they can use it or access it in jQuery? So what I wanted to do is I wanted to be able to, well, I'll show you what it does. I wanted to be able to click my header here, and it says ouch, and I'm holding the mouse down, and when I release the mouse, it goes back to what it was before. So I can click it and make it say ouch, no problem, right? Obviously. But how do I, when I release it, how do I get back at that value that came from the server? So here it was easy. I just said, oh, grab that thing that came from the server and put it as the text. But back here in the JavaScript, I think it's this one, where text event. Yes. So this part's easy. I can say when you mouse down, change the text to ouch. Very easy. But this one was not so easy. And the way that I approached it was I said on mouse up, I'm going to set the value back to what? That is what I use this variable for here. I'm saying set it back to whatever is in this variable. Well, why? The reason is because I can't do this. I can't say at model.title, even though it's there in the IntelliSense, no matter what I do here, I can't seem to get it there because obviously it doesn't exist in the JavaScript. That value doesn't exist. So the way you can kind of I guess it's kind of a hack, but the way you can get at that, if you're I shouldn't say this is the optimal way to get at that information, but I just want to illustrate that the stuff that's coming back from the server side isn't readily available in the JavaScript. You have to do something to get it there. Not necessarily this, but something. So this is the variable that I'm going to use to kind of transport that piece of information here to where I need it to be. And the way I'm going to get it is, and this is kind of the hack, is I'm going to write this piece of script right here that says, well, here I have access to it. In the view, I do have access to this string. And I can write this script that says, hey, grab that variable and assign it the value of whatever the server sent back. So here I'm taking the value from the server and I'm sticking it in home.title. So literally, this guy here does have the value of my first jQuery application. So I know that's kind of confusing, but the point is simple, and that is you don't automatically get the information that's in the model and the server in the JavaScript. So you need some kind of technique or framework or something to get it there. So anyway, the point of all this was kind of just to show you some of the cool things you can do with very little code in JavaScript or in jQuery. So obviously I got fade, got to remove, I got to drag, got some click events, got some motion going on, and a little hover clicking thing. So I wrote very, very little code to make this happen. And I think going forward using jQuery, you're going to be able to explore a lot of different stuff. Obviously I've supplied you guys with the links to the jQuery documentation, but if you do something like jQuery UI methods or API, you can come in here to so many different sites and just like, hold on, this is a bad one. I think that's the right one though. That's where I was. Oh, here we go. Sorry, I didn't click on the right thing. So you can come in here and just look at a million different, like look at this, the explode effect. I want to go try that right now, but I'm not going to. Point being is the concept of jQuery is pretty simple, but there's a whole bunch of stuff that it can do, and it'll take forever to figure out all of them. I would suggest this being kind of your sanity check, the developers.google.com that shows these different libraries. This is your basic jQuery library. This is the UI library that we use to accomplish some of that UI stuff we just did. And when we get into a little bit more, we might be getting into some jQuery mobile a little bit. But for the most part, we're going to be sticking to basics so that we don't get confused. We are going to be doing Angular at the end, but that's going to be kind of a whole different story. So that's pretty much it. That's pretty much what I wanted to just introduce you to with jQuery. And as you'll see in the assignment that I'm going to give you, I've kind of left it up to your own design and strategy in order to accomplish what I've given you to do. It'll be a little different than the previous assignments. I'm not asking you to just design a website about your interests or whatever. There's going to be a very specific task. And the one thing that I want to ask is that you just try to use really good jQuery and JavaScript coding practices. And I'll have a lot of feedback for you when I see what kind of code you write. So hopefully this, at least you have an idea of what jQuery does at the very basic level. And as always, just let me know if you have any questions or concerns, and I will help you as much as I can. All right, thanks.